Hi, welcome to another edition of Abide TV, and in this week's show, I want to talk about evangelism and sharing the gospel with those who need to hear it. Now, a lot of times we bring up a topic like evangelism and we can panic a little bit. I mean, that's really out there. I mean, that's something that those really bold people do, right? Well, no. If you look at the New Testament, man, go through the Gospels, go through the book of Acts, sharing the gospel with lost sinners is simply Christianity. That's what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. When Jesus called his first disciples, he said, "Follow me, and I will make you to become fishers of men." So the question is, are we fishing? And if we're fishing, then we can say we're following Jesus because Jesus came to seek and to save the lost. How are you doing with that? Now, sometimes you can get caught up in evangelism and want to do more in evangelism, and you start watching videos and hearing things that other people do, and you find out there's people out on street corners with crosses and signs, and there's people on boxes open air preaching, and all this stuff, and you get a little intimidated. Now, if you're nervous about sharing the gospel, I would encourage you, take the next step forward. Understand where you are now, and take one step forward. That's what I did. 5 years ago, when the Lord first brought the way of the Master to my attention, I had to start taking small steps out of my comfort zone. Now, I would encourage you to dive in, but there's some who'd rather take the baby steps into evangelism. And so what I would do for that first summer is I would just go to public parks and begin to walk around and simply hand gospel tracts to people and slowly build up the courage to begin engaging those people in conversations. And God continually showed himself faithful over and over, and I realized that there is nothing to be afraid of, and God has continued to open up more doors for me since then. So I would encourage you, if you are nervous about sharing the gospel, if you are afraid to engage somebody in a one-to-one conversation, just start where you are now and take the next step forward. Get yourself some gospel tracts and just begin to offer someone a gospel tract. Simply walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, how are you? Did you get one of these? It's $1 million bill." And you can either have a conversation with them after that or simply walk away, and that's all right. Sometimes after I give somebody a gospel tract, I would burn rubber to as far away from them as I possibly could. But in time, you'll deal with that, and God will give you the strength to have that conversation. But start somewhere. You know, sometimes we say, "Well, I hand out gospel tracts. That's not really evangelism." Sure it is. It's sharing the gospel with someone who needs to hear it. If you've never heard the message called George Street, I'm sure if you do a Google search for George Street, you'll hear a wonderful story of a man who simply committed himself to give away gospel tracts every day and what God did with that. So if you're nervous about sharing the gospel, just begin to hand out gospel tracts to people. These $1 million bills from Living Waters, people love them, and they even ask for more. And I believe you'll see it to be an exciting adventure in evangelism that God has in store for you. Now, if you're in the Cleveland area, this weekend, July 16th through 18th, we'll be at the Fairview Park Summer Festival, sharing the gospel with people involved in the Friday night parade, handing out gospel tracts, and they're going to go fast. So if you want to get your feet wet, that could be a great opportunity for you. But seek and save the lost the way Jesus did. Get yourself some gospel tracts and just do it and see what God might do. So thanks for tuning in this week, and Lord willing, we'll meet you back here next week for another episode of Abide TV. And until then, abide in Christ.